Hal for citizens time.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Rabel, Vice Mayor Cheatham, distinguished council, distinguished planning commission. I'd just like to say that I'm very encouraged. I love to see the city working together. We have a lot of positive things going in our community, and I want to see this continue. So thank you for your cooperation together.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? If not, we'll go into the consent agenda. We have the minutes from the August 13, 2018 regular meeting. Were there any corrections or additions to those meeting minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye, motion carries. We also have the August 15th, 2018 recessed meeting from the 13th meeting. Any corrections or additions to those meeting minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So be it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you all. We have the departmental reports that we received on the separate cover. Does anybody have any questions on those departmental reports? Hearing none, we will let them go as presented.
Okay.
Thank you. We will now get into the public hearing. Let me remind everybody of the process we're going to follow in the public hearing. The order of business will be that the Planning Commission will call the meeting to order. Council and Planning Commission will receive a staff report from Donald Goodwin. Then we will open the public hearing. There is no sign-up sheet that is required. Comments must be on the ordinance only. No rebuttal from the public after the public hearing is closed. We will then close the public hearing, and there will be a discussion between the Planning Commission, Council, and staff only. Planning Commission will take action to forward resolutions to the Council by ordinance number, and then Council will take action to adopt or not the motion on the ordinances by number in the agenda package. Okay, everybody straight on that? Okay, Mr. Goodwin.
I'll just call the meeting of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Chairman Peak, Mayor Rabel. What you have before you this evening are two additional zoning ordinance amendments that we've been working on over the last couple of months that we had discussed previously. One was not discussed at our meeting. One is a floodplain ordinance amendment, which was a result of a comment that FEMA had about our floodplain ordinance that they thought would help us with allowing accessory structures. The other one is acting on a resolution, an initiating resolution that council sent to the Planning Commission about 2 months ago concerning permitting the two-family dwellings back in the R2 zoning district. So with that, you have before you, Planning Commission has two resolutions. One is Resolution 2018-04, which is to add two-family dwellings back into the R2 zoning district regulations. And 2018-5, recommending allowing accessory structures as a permitted use in the floodplain with certain criteria that's outlined in the FEMA regulations, and they are listed in your ordinance. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those now.
Anyone, council, have any questions?
Thank you, anybody?
Does anybody have it? I'll let y'all go first. Does anybody have a question down there?
No.
In the 1 and 2 family detached dwelling, when we had our discussion, and maybe with some Planning Commission members, outside, just a discussion. There were going to be some caveats put with this as to what was required. I think y'all had a discussion about it, but I don't know what that discussion was. Could you kind of update me on what that was about, like requiring insulation and different types of windows, things like that?
No, we did not, the zoning ordinance can't put any of those requirements. That's all building code issues. The only thing we do have is setbacks from the property lines, front, rear, and side yard setbacks that they have to be, and the off-street parking requirements, 2 per unit. But as far as aesthetics or types of windows, any of those things, that cannot be regulated through zoning, per se.
Only through the building code.
Building code. If it was in a historic district, designated district, then yes, you can have exterior guidelines for, doing repairs on, exterior repairs on historic buildings located in the historic district. We have guidelines for those, but they have not been adopted. That's something that we had talked about during the comprehensive plan.
Any question?
Yeah.
Any other questions up here? Okay. Do y'all have any, Mr. Peak, Dr. Peak? Everybody all right?
Any questions?
I think we're pretty good.
Okay, all right. If that's the case, then we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak about the proposed changes to the ordinances? Is there anyone who would like to speak about the proposed ordinance changes? Is there anyone who would like to speak about the proposed ordinance changes? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And
We just remind the planning commission to use the mics for the public that can hear you. Just push that button until it turns green, and then it's good to go.
Well, this is, as Donald said, something we've been working on for a while. Is anybody on the planning commission have any more comments or concerns, or anybody want to move forward with a recommendation to city council on resolutions 2018-04 and 2018-05? We're going to do both of them at the same time, or we're going to do one resolution and the other one, however you want to do it. Okay. So with regard to resolution number 2018-4, that's the one to amend the zoning ordinance to allow one and two family detached dwelling units in the R2 general residence district. So finally, on the planning commission, have a recommendation.
I move that we adopt resolution 2018-4 and ask the city council to look at it.
And I second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2018-04. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. Moving right along, resolution number 2018-05 is to, a resolution to change the floodplain regulations to allow accessory structures in certain instances. Anybody in the planning commission have any concerns or questions or any comments? Hearing none, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution 2018-5.
Motion and a second to adopt resolution 2018-5. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, so I think we can close the planning commission meeting, and thank you all for coming.
I will ask council now, do they have any comments or questions about Resolution 2018-04? Is there any desired action of council on the recommendation that came from the Planning Commission?
Mr. Mayor, I so move that we adopt 2018-04 that the Planning Commission recommended.
Okay. I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second to adopt Resolution 2018-04, which is a resolution to amend Appendix D of the City of Franklin zoning ordinance, Article 8R2, General Residence Zoning District, Section 8.2A. So I have that motion, and I have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just following up on what I asked before when Donald said that it was a building zone, building code issue. Do we have, Taylor, do we have input into that, or is that state code and we can't change?
Well, your zoning ordinances,
I'm not talking about zone, I'm talking about building code.
well, the building code, we adopt and follow the state code.
Can we add things to it, or we have to follow it strictly for the state, by the state?
Strictly.
That's what I think.
It's only what the building code allows, and it doesn't get into aesthetics. The building code does not. That's something that the individual owner just would have to do on his own. Like I said, the only way that zoning can get involved in that if it's in a historic district and you have adopted historic guidelines for historic structures.
Sometimes you see it regulated through the
Deed restrictions, maybe.
deed restrictions or, you know, an agreement created and imposed restrictions by the developer on the subdivision as to what colors can be used, what sidings can be used, what shingles can be used, all kinds of things. But absent those kind of deed restrictions, you don't have any control.
Does the building code address, I'm not really interested in what I consider cosmetics. I'm talking about not necessarily structural, but good things for the citizens, like insulation and new windows and things like that. Are they covered in the building code?
Yes, for existing structures, they are. And if there's 3 levels of alterations. If repair, you start getting deeper into the structure, the more codes kick in. So if you were going to basically gut a building, then you've got to put the insulation back in. You've got to put, you know, some things up to date. So it's based on how much the alteration gets into the structure itself.
And that's monitored by you
We look
through the inspection
Right.
process?
There are definitions of each level, level 1, level 2, level 3. And we look at the proposed permit application and determine whether it's level 1, level 2, level 3. And then in our plan review, we will comment on the things that have to be done to comply with whatever level that they are undertaking for that renovation.
So if somebody's going to take a house and convert it into a duplex, which we're talking about allowing,
Right.
with what level?
I think that would probably be a level 3, depending on how much alterations it takes to make the change. Of course, now you got a change in use. So there's more things that can be brought into compliance at that point. Okay.
Any other questions? I'm going to ask Councilman Johnson if he will revise his motion, because for some reason, we've got resolutions and we've got ordinances and everything else going on. So the resolution came from the Planning Commission. We need to pass it as an ordinance, and our ordinance numbers don't match up with the resolution numbers. So
Right.
I guess they do that to confuse us, those of us who think it ought to be a lot more simple, but it's not. So the ordinance number is 2018-12 for that particular, for the, to amend Appendix D of the Franklin City quote, zoning ordinance article 8R2, General Residence Zoning District, Section 8.2A. So that's how it should be read. Okay, may I ask you to amend your motion to include it as ordinance 2018-12?
Yes. I amend the motion to let it read 2018-12 from the Planning
All right.
Commission. I mean, from our,
For our benefit, okay.
for our benefit.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Now, any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of ordinance 2018-12 signify by saying aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much.
And I apologize for that, but the Planning Commission's a recommendations, which is done by resolution, and your action is actually an ordinance putting it into place, and not, I should have did that last time.
I understand. It's just,
Sorry.
we got too many pieces of paper up there. All right.
Look after each other.
Okay. The next one is ordinance 2018-13, which is to amend the article of, for the floodplain regulations and to add section 4.3. Okay, so any discussion on that before we, do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve ordinance 2018-13.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
What's the general purpose of this? It's a floodplain adjustment, but what are we really trying to accomplish?
The way our current ordinance that was adopted last year, I think 2016, actually, it's been 2 years almost, required that to get an accessory structure, you've got to get a variance to put a garage. If you want to put a storage shed on your property and you're in the special flood hazard area, you couldn't do it without getting a variance for the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is allowed by right, as long as you meet the criteria, not to exceed 600 square feet. You know, it can't be a habitable space. It's got to have, be anchored. It's got to have flood vents to let water in and out. So it's a good thing. We need that there.
Okay. So is this correct to allow the structures or to fix the FEMA flood issue, or is it both?
It's both.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was a comment that came from our community assistant visit when FEMA came in and to look at our records, our flood program, on how we did things. And when they reviewed our ordinance, they said, well, you know, you don't allow accessory structures, why don't you? You know, FEMA has just released a memo to allow these with certain conditions, and they recommended that we amend our ordinance, and that we're just following through with that.
Okay.
And that should help us with our whole plan
Yes.
with them.
Yes, I can let them know that we've adopted it, because I was hesitant. I wanted just to use a policy because of the cost of advertisement, you know, just to get it here. But since we started doing these joint hearings, I felt it was a good time to go ahead and bring it to you.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, concerns? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye, nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 And aye, ordinance 2018-13 passes. Thank you all very much. Thank the Planning Commission. I think most of them have. Thank them, Mr. Tyler. Would you please thank them for us? Okey-doke. Now we go to finance. Ms. Gregory, please.
Good evening, Mayor, distinguished members of council, and Mr. Williams. It's my pleasure to present the financial reports for the general fund and enterprise funds for the city of Franklin. How do I get this thing moving, Teresa? Oh, I got it. There you go. I got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, the information enclosed in the city's financial report for the general fund is for the period ending June 30th, 2018. And for the general fund, it's based on the modified accrual basis of accounting. And for this presentation, everything has been posted that I'm anticipating for the financial statements. Next item. The overall general property tax collections are at $7.36 million, which is up from the fiscal year 17 collections of $7.22 million. And as what's been presented in the past, there's 5 major sources included in the general property taxes, consisting of real estate taxes, personal property taxes, penalty and interest, public service corp taxes, and machinery and tools taxes. The items to note for the current real estate taxes, the delinquent real estate taxes, the current and delinquent personal property taxes, they are all have higher than received in the prior year. And for all of those items, except for the current real estate taxes, they're all higher than what has been budgeted. The current real estate taxes is comparable to the prior year, received at 95% of budget. The following chart is just representing what was just discussed. Again, it's showing the real estate taxes at 95% at budget, collected a little bit higher than prior year, and you'll notice that all of those items, as I just previously discussed, with the exception of the machinery and tools at 95%, were higher than we were in the prior year. So we've done well for this year. For the local tax revenue, the sources of revenues in those items are mills taxes, lodging taxes, cigarette taxes, and sales taxes. As a whole, it's exceeded budget by $73,000 on all categories, with the exception of cigarette taxes, is in excess of what we were in the prior year. And being a little bit lower in cigarette taxes was anticipated. So the next item is just the same, what you just saw in the previous chart, just shown in a different way. And you'll see there, as a whole, we're at 101.9% of budget. This is the summary of where we were, where we anticipate to be for the general fund for revenue and expenditures. The general fund revenue at the end of the period totaled $22.4 million and represented 97.73% of budget. And when compared to the prior year period, it was pretty much at no difference. We were at $22.4 million for fiscal year 17. The general fund expenditures at the end of the period totaled $23.5 million, which represented 96.58% of the total budget. When compared to the prior year period of $22.6 million, this is a $900,000 increase. And I'll go over some of the changes for that. The projected general fund loss for fiscal year 18, which you should anticipate to see on your financials, is going to be at $1.1 million. And that's what you should anticipate to see on your audit. However, what was anticipated by council, what was approved by council in your budget amendments, was $1.38 million. So we actually didn't lose quite as much as what was anticipated as planned expenditures. So I think we're to the good for about 2.98. All right, the next item is the general fund revenue prior year comparison. So the first column gives you the account description. The second column is your prior year revenue. Then it gives you your fiscal year 18 budgeted, where we were at year to date, and then the balance excess deficit. That's comparing your budget to your year to date. And then the final column will give you the good or bad variance when you're comparing to your fiscal year 18 to your fiscal year 17. So that shows you we're pretty much neck and neck when we go to our totals. And again, we had appropriated 1.382 during the course of the year to balance the budget. The final slide is the general fund expenditures. Again, the columns are pretty much the same. Starts out with your prior year expenditures, your fiscal year 18 budgeted, where we were at year-to-date expenditures, and the final shows the variance. I just wanted to note some of the items that when we look at the very bottom line item, transfers, which is in the very lower right-hand column, when you look at the transfers, went up $427,000. A good chunk of that was, there was $355,000 during the course of the year that we had to appropriate to fund, that the council appropriated, which was a transfer to the capital projects that came from actually an audit adjustment, where it was not funded in FY17 for the capital projects. That showed up in the audit. So we did a budget amendment for that. So I just wanted to mention that. Before I go to the enterprise funds, do you have any questions on the general fund? Like I said, I'm not really anticipating any changes on the general fund.
Okay.
Some minor immaterial things, cleaning up the balance sheets, but nothing really material.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Move right along.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the enterprise funds. Do what?
It's all together. I
Oh, it's all
combined them.
together. How do I get it all the way up? Scan it for me. Okay, so the next is the enterprise funds for the same period, year ending June 30th, 2018. This is on the full accrual method of counting. There may be just a slight adjustment on this. I haven't booked the GASB 68 adjustments, which is for the pension liability. I've been waiting for snail mail to get the stuff from VRS, so I talked to Barry Faison, who's head of VRS today, so he sent me the electronic version, so I should be booking that this week, but it's usually not very material for the enterprise fund, so that's the only thing I'm anticipating to really change. Okay, again, this is for 12 months of revenue and expenditures, so we're going to start out with the airport fund. The revenue analysis is fuel sales and airport rental fees. We're at 106% of budgeted realized, and expenses in the fund, we're at 99% of budgeted expended, and his cash balance, we're only like at a deficit of $5,800, which is really pretty good compared to it. That's just really more of a timing difference for him. Water and sewer fund. The revenue analysis for them, the revenue from the sale of water and sewer service charges were at 3.44 mil at the end of the period, which is right on target at 100% of budget. The expense analysis, the expenditures in the fund are at 1.7 mil and are comparable to the prior year. And expenses in all the divisions, the water division, the sewer division, and the wastewater division, were all comparable, net of capital outlay, debt service, and depreciation and transfers. And then the next slide will show you their cash balance, which has been pretty consistent throughout the year. Solid waste fund. The revenue for the solid waste fund is just slightly below target at 96.8% of budget at 1.3 mil, and it's below the prior year collections at 1.37 mil, so it's very close. Expense analysis, expenses in the fund at $767K are below target, so that's good since the revenues are a little lower. But they're significantly below target at 86.37%. Net of capital outlay, depreciation, debt service, and transfers. And it's below the prior year expenses of $848K. So as a whole, they're doing good. And their cash is at $211,000. The electric fund. The revenue from energy sales are at 15.38 mil, which is above target at 101.5% of budget. And then I've shown you a snapshot. When you compare fiscal year 17 total of 14,009,461 and compare it to fiscal year 18 of 15,378,218. Again, this is on a full accrual method of accounting, so this is based on total billing, not cash collected. So when we look at I know we're all very familiar with the high electric bills during the winter months. This is based on what we actually billed out, not necessarily cash collected. So, expenses associated with the sale of energy for the fiscal year was $11.4 million and was below budget at 90.3% of the total budget. But a net of capital outlay, depreciation, debt service, and transfers. And this is lower than the prior year of $11.6 million, but again, we had the 544K true up. And his cash right now is running at 2.8 million. So we are above the minimum policy guidelines. And I just want to caveat that, like I always do when I present things for enterprise funds, when it really looks like you got a really good cash balance going, that always look at the capital projects that you have coming up when there's no rate study in place, that you got some really big, huge capital projects that might be out there in your 5-year plan if it's pay as you go. So. And his H report, his our receivables are staying a little bit consistent. That 180-day column is going up a little bit, and we're working on that, the billing department. And that's the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Do we have any questions for your enterprise funds?
Questions on enterprise?
Okay.
Everybody okay?
One question.
Sure.
How much was the, when will we know what the expense was for the outside investigation on the electric?
Well, I guess once they render their final report, I'm sure they'll get their bill to us real soon after that.
So we don't know ahead of time what they were charging for the service?
That I can't really speak to. I'm not sure. I haven't been really involved in that, but I can certainly get you that answer to that.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm sure that was quoted out, but I wasn't really involved in that piece.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can
Mhm.
look that up for you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Good,
I can do the budget.
good report, and thank all the staff
Okay.
for,
Yeah, they've
for,
done-
She's got
you got the budget, I know, I'm just thanking her for that
Yeah.
piece right now.
yeah,
Okay.
they did a great staff.
All right,
Alrighty. Okay, next is the budget amendment 2019-1. There's a couple of things going on in this particular budget amendment. One item is just reallocating the revenue budget within the general fund to agree to projected actual, which is the very first two line items for the 9,000, and that's just really an accounting adjustment, just getting between the two line items. The second item is recognizing additional revenues from the River Gauge Grant, appropriate revenue for use. It's just agreeing the grant what's listed in the grant to agree to our records. The third is to carry forward unspent appropriation within the school operating fund to purchase a bus and 2 vans that were delivered after June 2018. These were items that were actually appropriated by council in the spring, but they just weren't delivered in time. So those funds will close into the school's fund balance. And so they're going to pay for them in July, so we just have to reappropriate them. Fourth item is recognize additional revenues from donations and special gifts for the school operating fund and appropriate revenue for use because they just received new funding. They just got notice for new funding last week. The fifth item is carry forward unspent appropriation within the school fund representing fiscal year 18 surplus and state aid to spend on one-time capital expenditures. And I think that was taken care of last meeting. That's just documenting it. And the sixth item is to carry forward unspent appropriation within the water and sewer fund to purchase a trailer that was delivered after June 2018. Same thing. It's going to close in our fund balance, but it was just not delivered in time.
Okay.
So that is for your approval.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Graper, anybody? I think, okay. Any desired action, council?
Move for adoption of budget amendment 2019-1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving budget amendment 2019-1, signify by saying aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We have old and new business. We have the electric meter reading assessment follow-ups. Mr. Bly, please. Thank you.
Good evening. This is just a follow-up from what was discussed at last council meeting. I can say at this juncture that the final report will be available at our next council meeting, if you wish to have it at that meeting. That final step is to compare what we read and what the billing system actually sent out as bills. Everything else has been compared to this date. Last meeting, I had just given you a quick summary of a report I had received at about 2 o'clock that day, and took quite a while to get through. Was also waiting on pictures from Bellwether, which you have attached for some of the items that you have on the first sheet. Just to quickly go through it, the first line, it's labeled picture number 1. As you can see, I have highlighted in orange about the middle of that column, or that row, 20153. That's what BMS had copied down on their information as what our reading was. I also said last meeting, and I'll reiterate with the information I have in here, is all the information was sent to Bellwether in a manual format. There was no way that we could get that reading in an electronic format that Bellwether could use. So we printed out all the information from our iTron system. It was about 100, almost 200 pages, I believe, of information. That was sent to them. They manually entered it into their system so that they could download it into their hand reader when they went out to read the manual reading. So not to belabor the point, but they said our reading was 20153. And we know for a fact from the printout that we gave them, it was 10286. And if you look at picture 1 that they provided, it says 10286. The next one is a very bad picture in order to get a reading, but if you are familiar with reading a clock dial, the reading that you see on that meter is actually 24965, which our reading taken on the 23rd was 24826. The difference that you see in that picture when they read it on the 26th is actually 139 kilowatt hours difference, which would be in line for this meter on a commercial account. The next one listed, number 3, as you can see, also has a picture that this is an obvious bellwether misread. Their picture shows a reading of 47329, not the 74329, which they had entered in their reading device. The next item does not have a picture. They didn't provide one, but this is a commercial account as well. We actually went out and read this meter on the 14th, and it had a reading of 33093. And with their delay from us reading on the 23rd and they reading on the 6th, it went from 28581 to 32488, and then 8 days later to 33093. As I said, this is a commercial count. We see no usage, no issues with the usage, and the ERT is reading correctly. The next item is item number 4. This meter actually, and you do have a picture number 4. This meter sent no reading to the system, so our system showed a 0 reading. The manually read it by Bellwether on the 14th, and we issued a work order on the 27th to change the meter for the 0 reading. The work order we didn't get completed until the 30th, at which time the reading was actually 62628, which is in line to their reading of 61545. The next item, picture number 5. This is a very old and neglected heat pump that our personnel saw. The condensate line was clogged on the the outside unit, also a unit in use upstairs. The usage is correct. We notified this customer that they needed to have their HVAC equipment serviced as soon as possible because they do have a high bill. And we have not heard back if she has taken care of that or not. Next one did not have a picture. It's an old dial meter, and I questioned the Bellwether reading on it. We read it by ERT on the 14th, which was 2 days after they read it, or 12 days, I'm sorry, after they read it, and I had a reading of 24856, and the ERT is reading correct. The next item also does not have a picture. We believe this was one that Bellwether also copied down our reading, and I meant to double check that on that list and I did not, but I will check that. but we read it on the 24th. BMS read it on the 23rd, which actually before we did, and we read it on the 24th, which looked like very standard usage. Number 6 is another one that we think BMS had the wrong reading put down from our information. This is a perfect example of a clock dial meter, a better example than the previous one. But as you notice a little clearer, the numbers on a clock dial, the first dial goes clockwise, the second dial goes counterclockwise, the third dial goes clockwise, the second dial goes counterclockwise, and then the last dial is clockwise. So it takes a little getting used to reading these meters, but the meter reads in this picture, which was taken by Bellwether of 82060, and that's what they read. The last item I have on this sheet is the one I think I mentioned at the last meeting. There was a serial number in our billing system that was incorrect, and the only thing we can tell is it was actually entered into the billing system incorrectly whenever that service was built through utility billing, because it has too many digits to start with. But the ERT, which reads the meter, had the correct serial number in the field and in the billing system. And as you can see, both readings were matched up. So like I said, I spoke with Bellwether this afternoon and told them that this has dragged on long enough and we need to have the final report. And he said, yes, he's been in and out fighting an illness and so on and so forth, but we will have it for you for the next meeting.
And thank you. I believe we look forward to finalizing this as you do too, I believe. Yes. But thanks for the follow-up on these items. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Bly? No, thank you very much, Mr. Bly.
Can I answer Mr. McLemore's question that he had for the treasurer?
Please.
2 projects, the total cost was just under $14,000. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Does anybody else have any old or new business? If not, we'll go to council staff reports on boards and commissions. Do we have any? Anything?
Did you want to do this portion?
We can probably have to do it.
What, city manager's report?
Yeah. You want to take that? Go ahead and take it. I don't know if you want to get to it.
One of the things on the city manager's report is that he wanted to respond to Council McLemore on his concerns about his neighbors blocking traffic in the cul-de-sac at the end of Madison Street. City code and state law adequately address this, so no additional tools are needed to adopt in terms of police power regulations. Citizens who observe such activities should report it to the police department when it is occurring, and they will respond appropriately. The second thing the city manager brought up is enclosed is a VML memo requesting council to designate the city's official voting delegate at upcoming and annual meeting. Councilman Johnson is the only member who has indicated a desire or plans to attend. If desired, council can authorize Councilman Johnson as the voting delegate, and I would so move.
Okay. We have a motion to, I guess, assign Councilman Johnson as the voting member, authorized voting delegate for the VML. Is there a second on that?
Second.
And is there any discussion?
When was that discussed?
Last meeting.
The last meeting. Okay. All right, any discussion?
I didn't see that in the minutes. Can you tell me where that was in the minutes?
Which one of the two are you
second.
discussing?
Second.
The second one, as I said, it is a thing from VML that is dated August the 14th. It's right down below if you had read your agenda. It's right below that part.
Pull it up.
Well, it's on the agenda, and it's just, the meeting's coming up, and we need a delegate. Mr. Johnson has been attending VML and reporting back to us. So we have a motion, and we have a second. Any discussion, other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye, nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thanks for, any other, now we go to council boards and commissions. Anybody have anything?
Yes, I have the annual convocation of the school division. Mayor Rabel and I attended. It was very positive, and we have good news, if you haven't heard, that all 3 of the schools have been accredited, and they're working on remaining accredited. And that was, they did a good display of that at Franklin High School. It was a very good convocation, if I must say. It was one that was inspiring, and all the teachers were there. Everybody was locked in to get the job done this year. And I think school division, as well as teachers and everyone involved, needs to be commended for that effort of getting all 3 schools accredited. And you can go on the website, state website, and pull that up. And I must say the scores were high, somewhere in the 90s as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? It was pretty much a week of schools. We had the new teachers luncheon that I attended and represented the council, as well as I was invited to J.P. King to meet with their teachers also, the invitation of their new principal,
Yes.
so Mr. Parker. So that was a full week of school last week, going back to school.
And the new principal at S.P. Morton also.
Right. And we've got, remind everybody about the farmer's market on Wednesday nights, the cruise-in on Wednesday nights, and we've got, a couple of more We Be Jammins, and then we're out of there. We've got the grand finale, I believe the 8th of September for the cruise-in, so I encourage everybody to get out and participate.
Was it the last cruise in the largest, or?
I think the week before last was the largest weekly one they had. They had over 140 cars.
That's what I thought I heard, yeah.
Been busy.
Also, this past Saturday, Corey O's organization, a nonprofit company, sponsored a back-to-school school supplies at the park on Maplewood and College Drive. It was well attended. Councilman Copeland was also there. And it was really well attended, and they gave out quite a few school supplies to needy children. It was a very nice event. Congressman Bobby Scott was in attendance
Okay.
also.
Well, good. Good. Anybody else have anything? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that the Franklin City Council meet in closed session to discuss appointments to boards and commissions and to discuss the performance and evaluation of employees pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1.
Have a motion, do I have a
Second.
second? Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye, nays have the same opportunity.
Aye.
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 And aye, we'll go into closed session. Thank everybody for coming.